trusted deposit.
Violence continues to engulf the country as Sri Lanka faces one of its darkest days in its entire history. Good evening and welcome. This is Primetime News on TV1. As always, we have the latest news compiled and ready for you. For the Newsfirst team, I'm Lanka. Here are your headlines for tonight.
Prime Minister resigns amidst public anger. Temple Trees meeting leads to violent attacks on Mainagogama and Gotagogama, leaving 150 injured. Island-wide curfew imposed. Public unrest across the country. One parliamentarian dead. Homes of key government figures including Johnston Fernando and Nimal Lanza attacked.
In our top story for tonight, tensions erupted at the Mainagogama protest site opposite Temple Trees, the Prime Minister's official residence, this morning. Before we take a look at what transpired earlier on in the day, we have latest visuals coming in from the protest site. Police have fired tear gas twice to disperse a group that attempted to force their way into Temple Trees a short while ago. Protesters were also seen desecrating the property. Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa has tendered his letter of resignation to the President amidst violence disturbance to the peaceful people's struggle held in the country for a period of 1 month.
In his letter, the Prime Minister had mentioned about the requests made by the chief prelates of the three main sects, the Cardinal, the Bar Association of Sri Lanka and civil society regarding the formation of an all-party interim government as the most feasible solution to the prevailing situation. Mahinda Rajapaksa went on to say that the decision to step down was taken in support of the President's request at the cabinet meeting held 2 days ago to form an interim all-party government. Today began with an island-wide hartal in protest against the President and the Prime Minister. During this period, a group of supporters of the Prime Minister were called for a meeting at Temple Trees. Sri Lanka Podujana Perumuna Pradesh Sabha chairpersons, members and supporters attended the meeting.
Protests can take place. There should be a path to provide them solutions, but nobody has the right to turn their backs on the country's constitution to provide solutions. Therefore, my policy is to face the challenge and overcome the challenge. I am not accustomed to running away when faced with a challenge.
Following the statement made by the Prime Minister, various provocative views were expressed at the meeting. Ultimately, the group that attended the meeting attacked the unarmed innocent protesters at Maina Gama with batons. The group set fire to tents set up at Maina Gama. While police remained at the location, the group who acted in a disruptive manner then made their way towards Gama, set up near the President's office.
Protests at Gama opposite the President's office in Colombo had been running peacefully for the past 31 days. Young protesters who were among those involved in the demonstration called it a struggle out of love for this country. But earlier today, a group of thugs broke into the protest area, breaching through security, provoking unrest. They set fire to the tents set up by protesters and vandalized structures set up by them. The group that acted violently also attacked unarmed innocent youth and women as well. As tensions erupted, police intervened to bring the situation under control. They fired water cannons and tear gas, hoping it would quell the tensions. The situation was brought under control only after a few hours. Members of the Inter-University Students' Federation were among several others who joined the demonstration today. A team of army personnel led by a Major General had been dispatched to the area for security, but the tensions persisted for a few hours. Protesters at Gota Gama took steps to protect unarmed students from being attacked during the unrest. Amidst the tension, political leaders began arriving at the protest site. Jatika Janabalawegya leader Anura Kumar Dissanayake was among the first to arrive at the location. Opposition leader Sajid Premadasa and other opposition lawmakers arrived a few minutes later. However, they were turned away by protesters. What followed was hours of violence.
Protesters at Gota Gama then attacked thugs and pushed them into the Bere Lake.
Buses on which Sri Lanka Podujana Perumana supporters who arrived at the location were attacked.
.130 persons who sustained injuries in attacks launched at Maina Gogama and Gota Gogama are receiving treatment at the National Hospital in Colombo. Staff at the National Hospital condemned the violence perpetrated on ordinary citizens. It was during this time that a jeep carrying injured police officers arrived at the hospital. Staff of the National Hospital then arrived by foot to Gota Gogama. There was public outrage across the nation following the violent attacks carried out by supporters of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna on the peaceful protests at Gota Gogama and Maina Gogama. Lawyers staged a demonstration opposite the Halsdorf court complex, demanding the government not to resort to thuggery as a means to curb the peaceful protests. In a letter addressed to the President, the Bar Association of Sri Lanka demanded an immediate end to the SLPP supporters' violent attacks on the peaceful protests. Meanwhile, multiple protests were staged across the country by the public.
Protesters attacked the residence of a man who was among the group of thugs involved in today's clashes.
Following the attack on Gota Gogama, people from across the country started making their way towards Gota Gogama, resulting in an immediate police curfew being imposed in several parts of Colombo. The curfew was soon extended to the western province and later imposed island-wide until further notice, as the people's uprising could not be stifled. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa condemned the violent acts taking place by those inciting and participating, irrespective of political allegiances. In a tweet, the president stated that violence won't solve the current problem and requested all citizens to remain calm and exercise restraint. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa urged everyone to work together in solving the crisis.
The President's Media Division says a nationwide curfew was imposed with effect from 7 p.m. tonight. The curfew will remain until 7 a.m. tomorrow. Take a look at more news. Curfew was imposed today after protests took a violent turn across the country. Let's now take a look at what happened earlier in the day.
peaceful protests that were being held across the country took a violent turn today as Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna activists launched an attack on them. The vehicle of Polonnaruwa district parliamentarian Amarakirthi Athukorala was trapped in the midst of the unrest that broke out in Nittambuwa this afternoon. The parliamentarian was killed during the tensions that followed. Government parliamentarian Johnston Fernando had expressed controversial remarks at Temple Trees this morning. His remarks stirred anger, leading to an attack on his officers at Kurunegala and Lily Avenue in Colombo. A tavern believed to be owned by Johnston Fernando was attacked in Putlam today. The residence of former Minister Nimal Lanza also came under attack in Nittambuwa. In Moratuwa, the residence of the mayor of Moratuwa, Samanlal Fernando, was also attacked. The Vauxhall Street residence of Mahinda Kahadagama, who was at the forefront of the attacks on the protesters at Maina Gogama and Gota Gogama, was also damaged. As public anger continued to mount, the residents of Valallavita Pradeshya Sabha chairman Udeni Athukorala and parliamentarian Anupa Pasquale in Mathugama were also attacked. The residents of Stalia Ilavela also came under attack in Balangoda. It was also reported that the residence of former State Minister Sanat Nishanta in Arachikatua, who was at the forefront of today's tensions, had been set ablaze.
Violent scenes continue to unfold from across the island, and now on to a story we received a short while ago. 2 people have been killed in a shooting at the residence of the chairman of the Veera Katiya Pradeshya Sabha. Police said 5 others have been injured. Meanwhile, irate citizens have attacked the D.A. Rajapaksa Memorial Museum in Madamulana a short while ago. We now have the latest visuals of the area surrounding the museum coming up on your screen.
මගේ ෆෝන් එක බහලා ගියා නෝනේ මේ කරන්ට් එකක් නැහැ ලයිට් මේ එහෙනම් ඔක්කේ මෙන්න මෙතන තියෙන මෙන්න මෙතන
News from here in Colombo. A fire was reported near temple trees a short while ago. These are visuals of the latest images coming in from the area. The Avendra Gardens Hotel in Negombo was set on fire today as well. Luxury vehicles, including Lamborghinis, parked at the premises had also been set on fire. More news follows after this short commercial break.
Yasa isuru, pirunu tanak neveka. Lokma salli tiyena tana. Ape sallit parissam nisa.
ඉහළ ප්‍රතිලාභ සමගින් විශ්වාසනීය තැන්පතුවක්.
LB Yasa Isuru, unparalleled rewards for a trusted deposit.
Welcome back to the news. The Mahanayaka Theros of the Siam, Amarapura and Ramanya sects have strongly condemned the violent attacks on peaceful protesters.
In a statement, the Mahanayaka Theros said the political leaders who issued the orders for the violent attacks after having been given the public mandate no longer have the moral right to continue to function as public representatives. The Mahanayaka Theros said the attack on peaceful protesters is a blow to democracy and humanity at large. The Mahanayaka Theros point out that the head of state is bound by the country's constitution to protect the lives, property and freedom of speech of its people. The statement further called on Sri Lanka police and other agencies to strictly enforce the law against all those responsible for the violent attacks motivated by selfish political agendas. In their statement, the Mahanayaka Theros said this is the aftermath of the government's failure to focus attention on their proposals in the wake of the political, social and economic crisis in the country. The Mahanayaka Theros said it is imperative that all responsible parties and citizens of the country exercise caution and restraint during this decisive juncture.
Religious leaders today said Sri Lanka's rulers have joined the list of corrupt rulers such as Hitler.
A person has the right to protest in a civilized way. We saw how violent thugs were brought from other areas on buses and allowed to consume liquor. The police watched on by allowing violence to continue. We are shocked to see that this was carried out by a group that had left the Prime Minister's residence. We wish to express our objection towards him. In the past, we have seen organized attacks, injuries being inflicted and properties set on fire, along with disappearances and murders. We saw signs of this during the attacks that were carried out a few weeks after the April 21st attacks. I am requesting the people to avoid going against our religious values and to respond to violence through peace. It is the duty of the police to preserve law and order. Therefore, watching silently or allowing things like that to happen is unacceptable. It is regrettable to see that someone like the Prime Minister is linked to acts like this. We never expected a political leader to behave like this.
මෙවැනි තත්ත්වයකට වැටෙන්නට ඒ කරපු ක්‍රියාදාමය පිළිබඳව අපි බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන්නේ නැහැ රටේ දේශපාලන නායකයන්ගෙන් එවැනි හැසිරීමක්.
ඊවැනි දවසේ අටමස්ථානයේ වන්දනා කරලා
The Mahasangha condemns the attacks carried out by thugs on this devout person who visited the Atamasthania yesterday on people who are in hunger and facing many hardships and have been protesting peacefully against corruption.
විරෝධය පාපු ජනතාවට මෙවැනි පහර දීමක් සිදු කිරීම මහා සංඝරත්නය හැටියට අප හෙලා දකිනවා.
ත්‍රස්තවාදී දේශපාලනයේ පිළිබඳ
Mahinda Rajapaksa from Sri Lanka has joined the list of corrupt leaders like Hitler and Pol Pot who resorted to terrorism in politics. But we can't accuse only the elder brother and allow the younger one to walk scot-free. We can say the terrorist acts carried out by both brothers is not just limited to Golface. They are doing this with the intention of remaining in power even at the cost of creating bloodshed in Sri Lanka. If they are trying to emulate rulers like Pol Pot and Hitler, the peace-loving people won't allow the two brothers and their group to become such figures. An officer in the security detail of the magistrate who released the university students involved in peaceful protests on bail was interdicted. This is what the devout person has done at his official residence after visiting the Atamasthana in white attire and engaging in religious observances.
බොහෝ කුසල ක්‍රියාවන් කරනවා යයි ඉදිරිපත් වෙච්ච උපාසක මහත්තයා මෙන්න නිල නිවාසයට ඇවිල්ලා කරපු දේ.
President of the Bar Association of Sri Lanka, President's Council Salia Piris commented on the situation in the country.
ජනතාව හැටියට අපේ විශාල වගකීමක් තියෙනවා ප්‍රචණ්ඩ ක්‍රියා වල.
The people have a responsibility to avoid resorting to violence and from vandalizing public or private property. It is important to remain patient. Lawyers will always remain committed to protect the rights of the people. We are requesting the people to avoid engaging in violence. Do not harass anyone. Allow action to be taken against people according to the law.
නීතියට අනුව ඒ පුද්ගලයන්ට එරෙහිව කටයුතු කරන්න ඉඩ දෙන්නේ කියලා.
The Forum of Independent Parliamentarians condemned today's attacks as well.
If I was facing such a situation, I would have resigned immediately. That is my policy. I reduced my powers. I reduced my term in office from 6 to 5 years. Therefore, if there was public objection to that extent, I wouldn't have remained a single minute in office. They have gathered at temple trees only because they didn't listen to the people's voice. They had entered temple trees and places like Golface because they haven't taken the people's voice seriously. A government that is accepted internationally must be appointed. Considering today's incident, the international community might not even look towards our country.
ජාත්‍යන්තරය පිළිගන්න ආණ්ඩුවක් පත් වෙන්නට ඕනේ. දැන් මේ ආණ්ඩුවට මේ අද සිද්ධියේ ඉඳලා නම් මම හිතන්නේ නැහැ ජාත්‍යන්තරය මොන විදිහෙන්වත් මේ රටපැත්ත බලයිද කියලා.
President of the National Movement for a Just Society, Karu Jayasuriya, had this to say.
ලංකා ඉතිහාසයේ සිදු නොවිය යුතු දෙයක් අද සිද්ධ වුණා.
What happened today shouldn't have happened in the history of this country. Young people have been protesting peacefully and independently, calling for a change in governance. When they were calling for justice, supporters of the Prime Minister who visited temple trees had attacked these protesters. This shows that political thuggery still exists in this country. They attacked them mercilessly. The President and the Prime Minister are responsible for this. These groups had arrived based on the invitation of the former Prime Minister. Since yesterday we heard that they had been preparing groups of thugs to carry out these attacks. Today it showed that these were well planned.
මන්ත්‍රීවරුන් සමග පැමිණීමට ඒ අය පාරදීමට බලාපොරොත්තු අවශ්‍ය ආධාර අංශයට මේ දැනුවත් කිරීම. නමුත් අද හොඳින්ම පේනවා මේක කලින් සැලසුම් කළ යුතු දෙයක් නිසා.
The Sri Lanka Administrative Services Association has launched a trade union action by deciding to refrain from all duties from tomorrow until further notice as a mark of condemnation towards the government for perpetrating violence. The association will boycott all meetings attended by politicians and will no longer recognize district and divisional coordinating committees. Furthermore, Chairman of the Association of Health Professionals, Ravi Kumudesh, stated that health workers will go on strike from midnight tonight. The Executive Committee of the Government Medical Officers Association will also launch an emergency trade union action from 8 a.m. tomorrow in protest against attacks on peaceful protesters. Meanwhile, the Federation of University Teachers Association, or FUTA, has also decided to engage in a continuous strike action from tomorrow. Meanwhile, Defence Secretary Kamal Gunaratne has requested the people to extend their support towards maintaining peace in the country.
Don't resort to violence at a time when people have been affected by serious issues. The Prime Minister has resigned. The cabinet has been removed. Let's try to maintain peace in the country and maintain law and order. I am requesting the people to support the Triforces and the police to do this.
රටේ ජනතාවගෙන් ඉල්ලා සිටින්නේ අපි අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම ත්‍රිවිධ හමුදාව රටේ ජනතාව ආරක්ෂා කරගන්න කටයුතු කරන නිසා.
As Triforces personnel are protecting the people, we are requesting the citizens to think intelligently and act with restraint. As a country, we need to move forward at times like this. We can't move forward by setting fire to property or acting violently. What has happened is already over. As the Army Commander and the Chief of Defence Staff, I am requesting the people to act with restraint. Don't vandalize public or private property. Give priority to humanity. We don't hope to take action against protests that are carried out without violence, but we are requesting the people to avoid resorting to violence.
විරෝධයක් පාන්න ඕන නම් ඒ විරෝධ පාපු කිසිම අවස්ථාවක අපි බලාපොරොත්තුවක් නැවට කිසිම ආකාරයෙන් වෙනත් ක්‍රියාවක් කරන්න. නමුත් අපි කලහකාරී ලෙස හැසිරෙන්න එපා කියන එක බොහොම ඕනකමින් ඉල්ලා සිටිනවා.
Today's violence in Sri Lanka has drawn heavy condemnation from various quarters of the international community. Regional bodies and foreign envoys to Sri Lanka were among those who condemned the attacks.
The European Union has condemned this morning's vicious attack against peaceful protesters. In a tweet, the EU called on the government to protect people and to hold accountable those having instigated violence. The EU encouraged all parties to act with restraint and refrain from violence for the country's interest. The World Bank Country Director for Sri Lanka, Maldives and Nepal, Faris Ejhadad Zavos, says the World Bank is deeply concerned with the perpetration of violence in Sri Lanka. Faris Ejhadad Zavos tweeted, "Those responsible are only standing in the way of the country's immediate economic recovery and making the task even more difficult for development partners." United Nations Resident Coordinator to Sri Lanka, Hana Singha Hamdi, says the United Nations condemns all violence. In a tweet, the UN Resident Coordinator said the United Nations condemns all violence and calls on the government to protect peaceful protesters and hold accountable those perpetrating or instigating violence. She tweeted again saying police should protect peaceful protesters and use new emergency powers with restraint. Adding further, she said, everyday people have suffered immensely owing to the economic crisis. The crisis has brought together the people from all ethnicities and religions behind a common peaceful cause. I hope their efforts can continue.
And with that, it's a wrap of Primetime News on TV1. Do remember to take care, stay safe and have yourself a good night.